Great Britain sees great losses on the Russian side in the Ukraine war. The Ukrainian armed forces have tactically exploited Russia's weaknesses, thwarted the Russian advance, and inflicted heavy casualties on the troops, said a British Defense Ministry intelligence update on Wednesday. The Russians are struggling with the challenges of the Ukrainian terrain. Since they failed to gain control of the airspace, their options are limited. The Ukrainian General Staff said the Russian army had already lost up to 40% of its units since the war broke out. The information cannot be independently verified, though. London had previously said, citing its intelligence information, that Russia had also drawn forces from its Pacific fleets and Armenia into Ukraine. Moscow also hires private mercenaries, for example, from Syria. These could therefore be used to control occupied areas in order to increase the strength of their own troops. And something else is there. The Polish proposal for a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine has met with mixed reactions from NATO partners. At a meeting of defense ministers in Brussels on Wednesday, countries like the Netherlands made it clear that they currently do not consider such a project to be feasible. Only Estonia was open to it, publicly at least. The Polish Deputy Prime Minister Jarosław Kaczynski had discussed such a mission on Wednesday night after talks between the heads of government of Poland, the Czech Republic and Slovenia, and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met in Kiev. He said, "I think that a peacekeeping mission from NATO or possibly an even broader international structure is needed, but such a mission that is also capable of self-defense that will have to operate on Ukrainian territory." And according to him, he imagines a mission that works for peace and provides humanitarian aid, but at the same time is protected by the appropriate forces, the armed forces. It was initially unclear whether the violation had been agreed with other countries. Oh, not a violation, the ideas. Defense ministers from countries such as Great Britain, Finland and Canada, among others, expressed restraint on Wednesday on the sidelines of the meeting. "I'm afraid it's still too early to talk about it," Dutch Defense Minister Kaiser Ollongren said on the sidelines of the NATO meeting. "First of all, there must be a ceasefire. And in addition, Russia must withdraw its troops and there must be some kind of agreement between Ukraine and Russia. It's difficult to imagine a peacekeeping mission given the intensity of the war and, of course, the siege of the cities." Estonia's Defense Minister Kalle Laanet said a peacekeeping mission is one of the ways to help Ukraine. However, it should be decided by the UN Security Council, and we know the situation there. According to the British Defense Secretary, Ukraine will continue to receive weapons despite Russian warnings. "We continue to deliver weapons from many directions to Ukraine, and these go to the front," said Minister Ben Wallace on Wednesday on the sidelines of the consultations with his colleagues at NATO headquarters in Brussels. The Russian missile attack on the Ukrainian military training area Yavoriv, near the border with Poland, did not make the deliveries any more complicated. "Not at all for us," he said. Wallace expressed reservations about the Polish proposals for an international peacekeeping mission, for example, under the leadership of NATO. He wanted to look at the details first, he said. Russia has repeatedly warned the West against arms deliveries to Ukraine. A convoy with new armaments could be targeted by Russian armed forces, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said on Moscow state television on Saturday. Estonia has renewed calls for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. "All these states that can control a no-fly zone must act," said Defense Minister Kalle Laanet on Wednesday, but it's difficult. Well, he stressed that Estonia supports Ukraine in any way it can. However, the enforcement of a no-fly zone by NATO is currently ruled out for good reasons, I say. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly called for a no-fly zone to be established over Ukraine. "Close the airspace, please stop these bombings," Zelensky said in a video speech in front of Parliament in Ottawa on Tuesday. "How many more cruise missiles have to fall on our cities before they implement that?" he asked. Well, so far his Western partners have only comforted him in response to his request, Zelensky said. Well, so far NATO has rejected a no-fly zone so as not to become involved in a direct conflict with Russia. One understands Ukraine's desperation, but one is convinced that such a step could lead to a major war across Europe, said NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg recently, and he is right. To enforce a no-fly zone, NATO fighter jets would have to fly into Ukrainian airspace and shoot down Russian planes. And that would be the start of World War III. Ukraine is not a member of NATO, so there are red lines for what we can do. And of course, they don't want to understand this. I wouldn't in their situation, but we have to stick to those red lines. I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.